Hey everyone, and thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Modern Merchant Podcast. My name is Austin, and I'm your host. And in today's episode, we have a very special guest. This is Chase. He's the co-founder of Electric Eye and the host of Honest Ecommerce Podcast. Chase, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thanks for having me. I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. And, whenever I got in contact with you, I was pretty excited to get you on. We're obviously in the same kind of domain space per se. So really just to get us started and get everybody kind of situated with your background, give us a quick little background about you, Electric Eye, Honest Ecommerce, anything that you'd like to give us, give a little background.
Yeah, I've been in the e-commerce space now 7 or 8 years, been in digital for almost twice that. So over at the agency, we help brands scale through smart design and development and marketing decisions. Our track record's pretty dope. We've helped merchants make over, $10 million throughout kind of our career as an agency. So a lot of helping brands kind of scale kind of from like that $1 million price point up to $10 million a year. That's our sweet spot where we help people. And through that, kind of our content that we put out every week, every Tuesday or Monday, is our podcast, Honest Ecommerce. And these days, I'm definitely focused more on interviewing merchants and kind of telling their story, their founder story. It's really fun. And it's a great way to really hear the truth about starting a brand and an e-commerce business from people that have done it successfully.
Yeah, no, that's great. We're trying to get some more users on, retailers on to get that. It's kind of interesting. We were taking the approach of talking about content trends in e-commerce with other, SaaS companies that we work with or anybody that's kind of in, the e-commerce realm. But I did listen to a couple of your episodes, obviously love hearing kind of like that founder story of, people in e-commerce. And let's stay on that track of e-commerce. You said that you mainly had a digital background, but then you've also got into e-commerce. How'd that all start? How did you get into e-commerce? Was there a cool story or situation that happened with that?
I don't know if it's cool. You be the judge of it. But so once upon a time, I was in a punk rock band and I was touring the country, and that did not pay the bills. So I was freelancing the entire time I was in the band. I was basically in the back of a Chevy 2500 15 passenger van for about 9 months out of the year with a bunch of other dudes. And I had my laptop open and I had it synced to my cell phone, and I was just doing weird stuff on the internet to make money. A lot of magazine layout work, a lot of WordPress work. Started getting closer to the money, as they say, started learning advertising, started learning paid ads, started learning kind of digital, started learning strategy. So really cut my teeth and did a lot of things, figured out what I liked to do, what I didn't really like to do when I was in the band. And then when the band kind of gave up or, went on hiatus, as they say, I had a nice handful of clients that I was working with. And at that time, my business partner now, Sean, him and I actually met when I was in the band. We designed the album artwork for my band. Him and I were tag teaming some projects together. He was really green to consulting and being a freelancer. And I, at this point, had years under my belt. So he was making a lot of mistakes. I was just helping him out, like from a business side of things. And then he was like, "Hey, man, how them Facebook ads work, and I got all these brands over here on Shopify. Can you help it out?" And the next thing we knew, we had about like 6 retainer clients that we were working with, and Electric Eye was born.
That's awesome. I love that story. That's so cool. I honestly, it's I'd hate to say this. I was in a band a long, long time ago as well. I think we had like 2 gigs. It was forever ago, but seeing that transition and you just molding yourself into that mix of, where this sweet spot is now that you guys seem to have launched into, is always great. And so Electric Eye was founded pretty much off of working with your business partner, right? And then from my understanding, talking with you, you guys are now really venturing into staying in that domain of Shopify. Is that correct? Like you pretty much are your certified partner with them.
Yeah,
you kind of stick with Shopify, but how does that
kind of doubled and tripled down on what we do? So we're not really the best fit for startups. We're not a good partner, and this is my opinion. I don't think anyone is a good partner to help you find product market fit. That is like the hardest struggle ever. And that's just not a world we play in. What we're really good at is helping that small team, that founder who's got product market fit figured out, they've got some data and they've got initial sales and everything's pointed in the right direction, and they need that plan, and then they need someone to execute that plan, and that's us. So what that often looks like is kind of like a 1-2 punch of like a lot of user experience optimization. That's a nerdy way of saying like a new website, or we're going to fix your broken website. And then once that works, let's, get some more traffic to it through paid ads and owned marketing, aka email marketing and SMS marketing. Kind of throughout that process, we also like to look at another KPI, which is average order value, which is something that a lot of people often overlook. And in e-commerce, that's kind of a really big multiplier when it comes on your return on ad spend. So finding ways to kind of on brand do upsells and cross sells and bundles that make sense for your customers is a really great way to really turn a non-profitable kind of advertising endeavor into a profitable one. Is just get more money per sale.
That's interesting. Average order value, I don't really know if, we've thought about, when we're working with customers and they're looking at, the value, because from the perspective of, what we do as an order management, dropship management system, kind of in the back end, automating data, all that good stuff. It's always just automating as many orders as possible rather than taking a step back and let's look at the individual orders and look at the average order value that you guys are looking at. Why is that so important?
Well, first, it's super important. So let's just say, let's strip down e-commerce into the basic math that it is, right? Mm-hmm. E-commerce is 3 numbers. It's your average order value, it is your sessions per month, and it is your conversion rate. If you have the average for the last 30 days and you multiply it together, you're going to get your sales for the last 30 days because that's how math works. So e-commerce is math, right? So if you're spending $1 on Facebook ads to make $2, that's, some would say that's good. Some would say that's bad. It's whatever. This is the math we're going to go with on this little example here. So let's say your average order value is $2 on that transaction, right? Mm-hmm. And you're paying $1 every time to make $2. But what if, you think about it, all of your customers are buying 2 of your widgets at once usually. Why don't you build that bundle out, make that user experience more friendly for them, and now every time you spend $1 you're actually making $3, you know what I mean, per return. So now your returns have just gone up dramatically, and you haven't changed anything else. You're not spending any more on your ad spend, you're getting the same amount of visitors to your website, you're just returning more money. So that was a really simple way of looking at it, but it usually gets a little more convoluted when you're talking about real things. Like average order values are definitely all over the place. Depends on your product and your customer, types of stuff you sell. But, if you've got a $75 average order value, that's probably something you can profit on decently using paid acquisition. But if it's something down in the range of $30, that's a little more scary. And now you got to think creatively, how do I get more things into a cart? How do I get this up? So when I'm paying to acquire new customers, it's actually a profitable endeavor. And I'm not looking to make money on the back end through lifetime value or something like that.
Oh, that's a good point. And it's, I like what you said. E-commerce is math. It really much is. And whenever you see people that are working with large amounts of data, they don't take that into account, especially having a SaaS program that helps manipulate and do, math, right? Equations on data to show profitability reports, total revenues, things like that to make business decisions.
Yeah. We just try to make it simple for people and show them this is growth. This is how it has to happen. Each of these columns, there are certain things you have to do to work on and iterate upon to improve them. And it's that simple. And then every other KPI, I believe you can tie back to those 3 KPIs. But earlier is when you were talking about, your guys' software and how it more manipulates the order management and kind of inventory and the data right there. Well, what's funny is someone on a podcast the other day asked me, Chase, how do you guys over at Electric Eye do these bundles and those types of offers that are a little more creative on Shopify? And we were just it's usually custom now because we've built almost every way you can think that it would happen. We probably built it before. But they were well, what's funny is when the interviewer was saying when we approach that, we oftentimes have to ask them about their 3PL or the inventory management system, et cetera, because this is something that I actually wasn't thinking about. But they're when you do bundles and stuff, sometimes the inventory gets all screwed up because they'll sell a bundle, which is like one SKU, but it's actually like 8 other SKUs. And then like, they're like, so how do you guys solve for that? And I just go, we tell the 3PL to solve for it. So I don't know if that's something that you guys work on or not.
Yeah, oh my gosh, that's so funny. You're now in the realm of what we do day to day. And it's something actually we used to not do for a while until we started building out more functionality around this. And it's obviously, like you said, the concept of kitting and bundling, right? Bringing in SKUs that could be sourced. And the worst part is like, let's add this to the equation of that product in that specific bundle can be placed with multiple different warehouse locations, dropship suppliers, 3PLs. Like now we're taking into account of like this whole distributed fulfillment. How are we going to make sense for all of the inventory levels on all of these different fulfillment options, as well as route that order to the appropriate one as well? And it's funny, man. It's identifiers. It's creating the bundle in a system kind of like ours, and then being able to decrement inventory whenever products are coming in. We have a concept that's called committed stock. So we commit that stock once the order is in, so we can reflect that back on a Shopify site to make it easy for them to say, okay, well, we got an order in, it's for this bundle, it's got 3 SKUs on it, and each of these SKUs have different inventory levels. Let's make sure to decrement that right now rather than waiting for like a feed to update and all that stuff, so we can keep everything in stock, or at least reflected the right way. There's so much nuance that goes into it that we've been trying to solve, and it's hilarious to hear that that's a problem, and it's something that we hope to solve with our situation, and maybe not rely on a partner like you too much on that front.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's all of the problems that any brand's experiencing, and here's like, this is going to burst anyone's bubble. Like whatever you're experiencing isn't a new problem. Somebody else has experienced it before and they've solved it before, and there's a way to do it. And the like caveat to that is if you really have a new problem, it probably isn't worth solving, or you're thinking about it the wrong way, is what I've found. But I think the hardest thing with solving some of these things isn't like actually the development of it or mapping the stuff out. It's like the step before. It's just like getting it out of someone's head and on paper, and just like architecting the solution is kind of what we refer to it internally. It's just like, first of all, we got to sketch this out. Like, how does this supposed to work? Like, that's usually the hardest part, and just making sure you try to think of all the weird edge cases that are going to come from like implementing it. And then, once you solve for it, the rest of it's off to the races. It's easy. And that right there in and of itself is why you should always work with an agency that will help they'll do the discovery first, and they're not just going to go in blind.
Yeah. And it's funny. We do the exact same thing. We sketch out diagrams on, whether it be just like a Google presentation. It's just like, let's just get something on paper and like, let's visualize this. And then let's start going through all the edge cases. And you're right to kind of take back to the other point of understanding the problem. And once you understand the problem, there's probably a million different ways that you can solve it, depending on like what you and your team or your company is capable of and like your tech stack. It's like, there's been plenty of people that are okay with manually placing orders every single day with their vendors, but we're talking 2 to 5 employees, 3 to 5 hours a day, when you could have a system like ours or honestly anybody out there that can just automate that for you, and it's the same thing of, understanding how to split out these bundles and keep everything in place and placing orders with the right suppliers or fulfillment sources and doing all that. And we see do it a little bit manually, do it fully manually, automate it a little bit, do this part manually, but automate this part. And it's like, there's all these different equations, and it's always good to talk to someone that's another company just like us, where we take pride in like the architecture of it. It's almost like just getting back to that like a jigsaw puzzle of like, here's a problem, here's an edge case, how can you solve it? And that's something that I love doing with the company here. It's kind of a nice, it's nice to help people out from that perspective, not just sell, right?
It's having a challenge is fun. It keeps the job interesting, and that's why we haven't gone like super productized with what we do. We like to really go deep with our clients and solve, bigger problems. That's fun. We get to use our brains. But another thing kind of just in that regard is just like with automation, it's like you should probably do that process a few times manually.
Yep.
Because you'll catch all the weird stuff. And then like, yeah, it probably makes sense to automate it.
Yeah. And honestly, and it was funny. I, like you're familiar with Zapier or Zapier, however you want to call it. They brought out an article the other day, and you know them, and we use them. Like they're great. Like you can just connect different systems into other systems and automate things with all these different ways. And they came out with an article, and automation that's their forefront. That's their MO. And they came out with an article that says, maybe you shouldn't automate everything. And it was just an interesting conversation or blog that was like, oh, this makes sense. Like, start manual in some edge cases, and maybe some edge cases you just shouldn't automate in general. But it was an interesting kind of devil's advocate for
I've definitely spent 8 hours or so in a month automating something that like I do every blue moon. And it's like, why'd I do that? Sometimes sometimes it's just like, that's the tinkerer in me. Like I do like iterating and doing stuff like that. It's fun. But oftentimes it's like, it's not just automate. It's like automate, delegate, and then terminate. It's like there are things you shouldn't do and just don't do them anymore. And then there are things that, still take humans to do, and perhaps you should delegate it either to an assistant or a new team member or an existing team member. I think with any business, e-commerce, SaaS, or like an agency like ours, establishing firm swim lanes as you grow the team is, something I wish someone would have kicked our butts about a long time ago. We're a lot better about it now. But yeah, swim lanes are a very useful concept to understand when you're trying to grow a team. Yeah,
that's probably a conversation that we could go on forever on that front. It's funny, we look to implement Scrum, in certain edge cases for things that you shouldn't be doing Scrum and certain stuff like that. And it's funny implementing things that are for developers, but we do it for like a marketing team or something.
We have like a really hacked together, like it's a really good process for building custom Shopify themes, but it wouldn't work for anything else in the world. And it's like it's a half waterfall, half agile approach that's like tailor made to rapid developing Shopify themes that are custom, they're fast, and they're beautiful. But if you try to do anything else with this process, it will just blow up.
That's your secret sauce, huh?
It's one of our many secret sauces. I mean, that was a really fun investment to make within the team, was building out that process. And then every time we do a custom site, we iterate upon it and we make it better and better. But we've got like a skeleton, and every theme that we've ever built has been built upon the skeleton. So again, we've done it before and we can iterate faster. And we focus on the things that truly matter. And it's pretty cool. We keep that thing really up to date. Like every time there's a new Shopify API release, like Mike's in there making sure that there's, is there something new that we should be looking into? And he keeps it pretty up to date. So that was a fun thing. It allows us to build, beautiful themes a lot quicker than the competition.
That's awesome. So let's take a step into, your realm in regards to, what you guys provide. And when I first actually went to Electric Eye, like anytime I talk to anybody, I'm always like, let's go to this website. Let's check it out. You guys have some interesting, we call it success stories, clients, people you work with that you kind of shout out on the site. What's one of your favorites?
Ooh, man. So that's interesting. My favorite client are the ones that treat the team well.
Yeah.
When you're a younger consultant, freelancer, whatever, you're always like, I want that big name client. And let me preface this with, like, I am not saying any of these clients are bad, but I'm just saying, like, we've got the Black Keys on our website, and we've got Only New York, and we've got some pretty cool names there. And sometimes just because it's a cool name doesn't mean it's a cool person to work with. And at the end of the day, I want my team members to have like awesome people that they have to be interacting with every day. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, my favorite clients are the ones that truly see the vision of what we're trying to do together. Like it's definitely, there's a lot of trust that goes both ways, but when you've got like some good KPIs going into it, and you've got a really strong product and you've got that foundational like customer base, like having a technical partner like us come in and be like, okay, like we're going to optimize the crap out of your user experience. We're going to raise your average order value. We're going to raise your conversion rate. And then we're going to pour the gas on this fire with awesome, email marketing and paid ads. It truly works. And, watching these brands grow 100, 200% in a year is like something really fun to be a part of.
So that's like, I guess one of the most rewarding things is seeing that growth for a handful of these customers. Like, or is it, I don't know. I'm thinking like maybe like a specific story or a specific project that you guys took on that it was like, this was a massive feat and we completed it. We crushed it. We did such a good job versus like, this was unique. Like what's like super rewarding for you? Like maybe a good example. I mean, you don't have to say who it is specifically.
I mean, we've worked with a bunch of clients and it's usually the same thing. They've been burned before, they heard what they should be doing from other people.
Yeah.
And then, it's funny, like, we did some client interviews a few weeks back, and one of the clients was like, it's funny, like everyone says they're Shopify experts, but you guys know exactly what you're talking about. And I was like, yeah, it's because it's the only thing we do. We don't touch Magento. I don't care about WordPress anymore. Like, I don't know anything else. We only know Shopify. And, we're really just dug in deep with like direct to consumer and helping, brands that sell products to customers. Like, that's a very specific area to be in. We don't care about anything else. We've done as an agency that basically the same version of these projects over a dozen times. It's fix the website, drive more traffic, you're going to win. Like it's that simple. But kind of just like the nuance of what you have to do with each project changes a little bit.
Oh yeah. I could talk about that for hours as well. Just little nuanced things that will just make that little switch that does it. Definitely one of the most rewarding parts. And, this is something that I wanted to bring up and usually, I mean, obviously it's going to get brought up, COVID, digital shift, everything that's kind of been happening the past few years with e-commerce. We see, at least from our perspective, and we don't work with a lot of, to be honest, we don't work with a lot of brands per se that you guys kind of do. We do have a handful and we do have, and, you've got that little mix of, I'm a brand. I categorize myself as a brand, but at the same time, you're reselling other brands' products, not necessarily just your own or some other stuff like that. So, with COVID, digital shift, we're seeing a lot of direct to consumer. At the end of the day, retail was, if I'm manufacturing my own product, I don't sell that to consumers. I sell that to other companies. And now it's getting to a point that a lot of these brands are shifting away from that, going direct to consumer, new brands starting up that are right out of the gate going direct to consumer. Is there anything besides direct to consumer or any other trends that you guys currently see right now? I mean, and also like, how did you guys do, when COVID hit and all that good stuff? For us, it was like that double-edged sword, right? I think it was that way for a lot of us in e-commerce.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of unknown for anybody that had a business anywhere kind of, the first couple of months of when COVID started to take hold. With that being said, we ended the year very well. All of our clients had an amazing year. It was definitely lightning in the bottle for e-commerce growth. And, being very blunt about it, I don't think brands are going to see the same type of growth this year that they saw last year. And everyone should expect it and not put blame on anybody, because there were literal kind of like once in a lifetime situational things going on gave kind of the fuel to last year's fire. And, we did good. The agency itself has been fully remote since well before COVID. So it wasn't a hard switch for us to take on. Like, we were already doing it. We just kind of didn't meet up in person as often, or ever actually, for the longest time. Funny enough, we're fully remote, but we're all here in Columbus, Ohio. So it's a little quirk. But I mean, most of our clients are like kind of have a hybrid approach to how they run their teams. So they'll have there's a few people in the office or the warehouse, and then they have team members all over the place. And, I think that's just kind of like something that's unique about the e-commerce space. Is like, we just don't care. Just do your job. But the second part of your question, I'm definitely drawing a blank on. Or no, I answered the second part. I didn't answer the first part.
Trends that you're seeing, you guys are noticing lately. I don't know, more brands coming to you, different stuff that's happening.
Well, I've been like on 100 podcasts this year. I mean, obviously my podcast is every week, so I can or can't count that. I don't know, but I've been on on purpose. I've been trying to get out there, meet awesome people like you, Austin, and just try to put some knowledge out there. But through doing that, we've seen definitely a big uptick in people looking for help in scaling their businesses. And when it makes sense, we're an amazing partner, and I can see it very fast. And I'll walk you through like what our vision is and how we could help you kind of do awesome things. At the same time, it's a lot of education being a service provider like us, and we're very nuanced in it. And so a lot of my job is, kind of explaining those KPIs to people and like walking through like what they need to be doing at these particular places, and then showing them case studies where we have done it before, and showing them client testimonial videos to win the trust. So it's a double-edged sword, kind of, as you said. There's a lot of people reaching out, but it's not everyone's the right fit to work for your business, and like we know that, and other consultants need to kind of hear that sometimes. We're a small team, and we work with like only about a dozen clients at a time. And we often don't have capacity to take stuff on, and we've had a wait list at times, so it's pretty fun.
That's interesting. That's one breath of fresh air that I love working for the company that I do now, because we take a very consultant approach. I was our first sales rep that started here at Inventory Source, our sister company to then the founding of FlexPoint, and I've worked at other sales jobs and things like that, and it didn't feel salesy. It's that consulting. You're really here to help. You're here. My favorite thing was the architectural diagramming of things, and like we talked about. And I love that consultant approach. And I feel like we're going to start to see that's actually a trend that, we could be talking about, where more and more SaaS companies are definitely going to be popping up like crazy. Everybody's going to want to sell something or build some company to help people trying to go online. And more people will probably know that that's the approach they should take, is a consultant approach versus I'm going to sell and then churn out people. Cause it's the same thing for us. As much as like, somebody might think that like our SaaS program is good for them and good for their company. They want to buy, they want to adopt it, they want to get on with us. They might not be a good fit. And to be completely honest with you, we're going to tell you that because at the end of the day, it's like it's a lose for both you and our team to take that on. So kind of beating that drum.
Yeah, there's definitely there is a toll to onboard a new client, and it's like an opportunity cost, especially for an agency.
Yeah.
Because we could take on a better fit, you know what I mean? But outside of that, like trends, another way you could take that question is like iOS 14 nuked the Facebook pixel, iOS 15 nuked like email open rates. And so what I've been seeing is brands are doubling down on creative and on content and like how that they are engaging with their community. And the brands that are taking that investment in faith and kind of doubling down in those elements, like they're going to be the ones that win. If you tied your growth of your business to, performance marketing, it's going to be a lot harder to track that. There's definitely going to be some new ways to track things coming out in the future. But there's definitely going to be some interesting developments in those industries here in the next year.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Didn't even think about that. A lot of updates. God, don't you love it? Just Shopify's updating. This person's updating their API. These people are going to another API.
Hey, keeps me on my toes. Keeps my job interesting.
Yeah, it keeps jobs with our development team as well. It's always a kick out of that. Let's start to shift on to the other part. This was something I definitely wanted to talk about, and it was just obviously running your own podcast. We do our own podcast. You have Honest Ecommerce. And I've seen you've done a lot more episodes than we have. What's one person that you brought on or someone you've talked to, and it doesn't even have to be your own podcast, at least another one you jumped on, that was really interesting lately? Just a good conversation, some good content, things you guys talked about. Doesn't even have to do with e-commerce.
I got a really good answer to that question, actually. So as I was freelancing and consulting, and as we were building, Electric Eye, there was a podcast that I would always listen to called Freelance the Founder by Millo. It was like kind of the app company or the I think it was like a product company that was behind it, but it was a very interesting podcast. They had a lot of really interesting guests. Fast forward about 6 or 7 years to now, I was on that podcast earlier this year and talk about like kind of like imposter syndrome, man. I was like, I used to listen to this podcast, and now like I'm a guest on this show talking about going from being a freelance to founder of an agency and all the goofy stuff that we made mistakes on. And so that was a really interesting, fun kind of turn of events for me.
What did you guys talk about?
Oh man, just all sorts of just goofy stuff of starting your own agency, and just the growing pains and the lessons that I've learned.
What was give us one? What was a crazy growing pain?
Well, I mean, it's not a growing pain. Here's just like a real fact that sounds obvious when someone says it out loud, but until someone like you hear it, it isn't. So 2 people at your company cannot be responsible for one thing. Like there has to be a swim lane, like I was talking about earlier. Yeah. So a perfect example is like when you have a partnership, when you're early on, if like both of you are supposed to be responsible for invoicing, for example, like you're just going to assume the other person's going to do it and it's never going to get done. You clearly need to establish one person is responsible for one thing. Like you can help. Obviously, it's a big thing. There can be some help, but it's like the one person every week needs to be responsible and kind of pushing that thing forward.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I feel like you run into that in every company. You have to have someone responsible for it, but it doesn't mean you can't have a team or
who's owning this is the question that we kind of say internally now at meetings.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Okay, cool. We're honestly wrapping up on time a little bit here. Chase, is there anything, that we've not talked about that we should talk about? Anything that you're seeing lately? Anything you want me to just start teaching you how to build an order management system? Like what you thinking?
No, man, I had a fantastic conversation. Black Friday, Cyber Monday is right around the corner. I don't know when this podcast is going to come out. I'm assuming a little bit soon. If you are listening and you don't know what your deal is yet, you need to figure that out immediately and start getting everything in place for that soon. You don't want to be scrambling at the 11th hour. Your developers, your contractors, your freelancers, your agency doesn't want to be scrambling at the 11th hour. You want all that stuff in place so then you can be creative and maybe try something new or make it even better. So, wow, I'm losing my voice. Make sure you have your offer in place. Make sure it's simple. Think of it this way. Your customers are going to get like 100 emails over that weekend. And if I can't read your email and your offer doesn't make sense to me in like one read, you've already lost me.
That's a good point. And like every emails we're getting is another webinar, another podcast, another blog coming out on Black Friday, Cyber Monday. And it's not just 2 days. It's the rest of that month. It's the month after, and it's just going to keep going from there. But that's a really good point. While I still have you, give us a quick little plug on Electric Eye and Honest Ecommerce.
Absolutely. And hopefully my voice will stand out. So if you think that you might be a good fit for working with Electric Eye, you want to talk to a partner that can really help you get to that next level, we'd be a fantastic fit. Reach out at electriceye.io, hit connect, and you can have an intro call with a team member. Or if you just like my hot takes on things, you want to hear me interview founders, you can head on over to honestecommerce.co. We put out a new podcast every Monday. You can join our newsletter and get them right into your inbox. And that's a fantastic place to learn about kind of trends and things that are going on in the industry.
And are you on all the different platforms? Spotify?
Yeah, iTunes? You can find the podcast anywhere podcasts should be. And if it's not somewhere, email me and I'll figure out why it's not there. It's also on YouTube. We've been trying to crack that code. So we put a lot of work into the YouTube stuff. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. That should be my ask for the next 6 months.
I was working with a marketing team here. I'm like, we need to find a way to get more subscribers to our YouTube channel as well. Yeah. We put out good videos, we put out podcasts as well. We're on YouTube as well. And it's like, we need to keep making that plug. Like, keep going to YouTube. That's where I live every day. I live on YouTube. I love watching podcasts on YouTube. Me too, man. That's so funny. All right, Chase, I really appreciate you jumping on, my man. Great conversation. Obviously, everybody listening here, make sure to check out Electric Eye and Honest Ecommerce. And then if you're not subscribed to us, subscribe to us as well. Appreciate everybody jumping on and giving us a listen. Chase, thanks again for jumping on as well. Absolutely. Thanks for having me. All right, everybody tune in for the next episode. See ya.